VAUXHALL's new Corsa has enough power to make you forget that you're driving the Jeremy Kyle show on wheels. Can you imagine all the effort and time that has gone into develop one of the best performance cars you feel that your company can build? You hand it to the journalists and that's the first thing they come up with. It doesn't get any kinder from there. They suggested it would suit Kerry Katona, if you remember her, and it was indeed a Chavs Chariot, if there ever was one, with its silly side skirts, joke rear diffuser, fake air vents and of course 18-inch wheels. Now there's a lot more to the story of VXRs and the Corsa VXR, which I'm going to explain in detail on this video. I've bought this one and I bought it for good reason. However, just to clarify before we go any further, that is a pile of poo and that is a VAUXHALL Corsa VXR. Well, let's dive inside because it's windy and I can't hear myself think. Another bit. My point is that once you drive the Corsa, you tend to forget it makes you look like Darren from Quick Fit. I'm going to explain exactly who wrote that article, and you're probably thinking someone like Clarkson, but it was not. I think what we're forgetting here is back in the 2000s, VAUXHALL was huge in the UK. They were literally everywhere. There were Marivas, there were Corsas, Astras, Novas, what were left of the Novas, Calibras, you name it. VAUXHALL was a massive brand, and you kind of would have expected that this would have done particularly well as a performance arm of the brand. Basically, VXR was formed in around about 2004, and it came from VAUXHALL Racing, genius. And they wanted to take the world by storm. They had lots of media campaigns saying things like RIP GTI and Are you VXR enough? It was very noughties, and unfortunately for them, it didn't work, and it didn't work for a multitude of different reasons. So let's first of all get out for a blast, see whether or not the journalists were right about this, because a lot of them talked about there was too much torque steer, it didn't feel right, the chassis didn't feel balanced, the turning wasn't great, etc, etc. So I've not really spent much time in one of these before, so take it out for a quick 2-minute blast, get back, and I want to talk you through exactly where it went wrong. Here we go. So it gives you a nice little shift light when you're changing gears. Initial reaction on this is I really like the chunky steering wheel. I love the seating position. There was a load of reviews at the start saying people weren't happy with it, but I love it. I love the big Recaro seats. You feel like you're getting hugged. It genuinely feels like a nice, fun and engaging place to sit. And I think the problem is with any car is that people will compare them. So they'll look at what the competition is on the market and say, well, what's it like compared to that? Whereas I think sometimes we forget that we just need to look at a car in its own right. And does that feel good? Does it look good, smell good, touch good? Touch it, feel it, drive it. It's so good in the bends. I'm on these lovely little country roads and it just feels well and truly in its comfort zone here. It's great round these corners, absolutely love it. There's something really rewarding about an old turbocharged engine, and I'm going to say this and you're going to think I'm a little bit weird, but it reminds me a little bit of an Impreza, and bear with me on that one because it is absolutely nothing like an Impreza at all. Hey, oh, there goes a Subaru the other way with a big silly spoiler on. The Subaru Imprezas ended up with a really bad reputation. I know this because I own one, and I also know this because I'm exactly the sort of person that ruined that reputation. I'd done it with the Corsa as well. I did it with my Novas. However, there's something about going into boost, that sort of turbo lag, and then going through the corners, rowing through the gears, feeling like you're in something light and nimble that is built for this. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of an Impreza. I know that seems really weird. Maybe if I painted the wheels gold to match the blue paint, it might make more sense. However, it just feels tight and planted. They got a load of abuse with these cars for torque steer in first. Seems all right. So it's 190 horsepower-ish, 190 foot-pound of torque-ish, and it is just enough to have some fun. At 20 years old, I'm so glad I wasn't able to get one of these, and I'll explain in a little bit more detail later on as to why I couldn't get one of these at the age of 20, because I think I would have ended up going backwards through a dry stone wall. I don't hate this at all. I mean, we'll go through exactly why it's hated a little bit later on, but as a little hot hatch, it's great. And I think it looks epic as well, especially coming through this Yorkshire countryside with the dry stone walls and the rolling green hills in the sunshine. It's great. It really is a tragic tale, this, for VXR and VAUXHALL as a brand as well, because it just ended so badly for them. And there are three sort of main reasons for that, which I'm going to go through in a second. when we get parked back up. So we've put a microphone on the exhaust so you can hopefully hear it a little bit better. But it has to be said, it does sound a little bit muted in here, and you can see why so many boy racers decided they're going to put a big stupid exhaust on it and map it, because when you look at something like a Renault 5 GT Turbo, it's a bit similar to that as well, isn't it? Because so easy to modify, makes such a huge difference when you map a turbocharged engine. You can see why a lot of people fell into the trap of modding them. It's a really nice, tidy, clean example, this. Now, we ran it through Vehicle Score, which is a great way of checking your car, of course. Give it a score out of 999, which was this. Scored really well, so we're happy with that. We're happy with all the service history and all that sort of stuff. But I think it's like finding hen's teeth, finding a car like this. Obviously, if you want to check your car out, again, link in the description below. What we'll do now is we'll get it back to Alex, who's sat on the side of the road very patiently. Let me explain exactly what's gone wrong with this, and with VAUXHALL, and with VXR, and why there's not a lot they could have done about it. Okay, so I think it's fairly safe to say we've established the car actually drives quite well. It's good fun, it's got plenty of power, it handles well, it's nice and engaging to drive. It's the sort of thing that at 20 years old, which is how old I was when it came out, I'd have loved if I hadn't have ruined my credit rating at the time, so I could have actually afforded to borrow the money to buy it. That is one of the reasons that this car went wrong. There are three main reasons. So first of all, it was indeed the money side of things. Secondly, was the competition. And the final thing was the type of people that bought it. Hoodie wearing 20-year-old Rob. Now let me just break all those different things down. The competition. At the time that this launched, you had better cars. There's no denying it. So you had the Renault Clio, which was a better handling car. You had the Civic Type R, which had a better engine, sounded better. Everybody loved to bounce it off the limiter. Then you had the Fiesta ST as well, which was also just a better car. So it wasn't that this was massively worse than them, it was just not quite as good, not quite as balanced, etc. As a car to drive, I actually think it's probably as fun, if not more fun, because of that turbo, etc. It's a good laugh. That was one of the key problems for it. The second problem, and probably one of the biggest ones, was the owners. I would have loved one of these when I was 20, but unfortunately at the time I'd spent most of my childhood trying to get banking loans to buy VAUXHALL Novas. I destroyed 5 VAUXHALL Novas in my time as a youngster. Some self-combusted for some bizarre reason, some got crashed, some got stolen, etc. It was a rite of passage at that age to destroy cars. I'd have loved one of these, but I couldn't get the finance for one of these. And unfortunately, what they were doing for themselves is they were offering ridiculous finance deals. So they were offering deals that were structured at around about 200 quid a month with 200 quid down and a year's free insurance. That in turn attracted the sort of people that, and don't take it the wrong way because I was one of these people, couldn't necessarily afford to maintain these cars and didn't necessarily take care of these cars, and also modified these cars a lot and often badly. So there are a few different videos I've been watching as we sort of built up to build this video for you, and there are certain people that are reviewing these cars saying, oh yeah, it's been mapped, we don't quite know what horsepower it is. Well, I've got a Subaru Impreza that's been mapped, and I can tell you exactly what horsepower it is, where it comes to boost, what sort of ratios are used for the methanol that we've put into it. Everything is absolutely perfect, so that car doesn't immediately explode as soon as you've mapped it. A lot of people, when they say VAUXHALL Corsa VXR, the first thing that comes to their mind is piston 4, because that's the one that fails first, or the gearbox, because it's an M32 gearbox that is renowned for having problems. However, all of these things often tie back to the owner, and the owner ties back to the affordability. They made this cheap for a reason. They tried to get people on board, and unfortunately, cheap cars, cheap maintenance. But there is actually more to this story than just that. So if you think that wasn't a catalogue of errors, there are further things to add to that as well. Now you're probably wondering what I'm doing with this car, and I did buy it myself with my own money. And normally when I buy cars into stock at the moment, being a used car dealer, I used to buy on the open market, I used to buy from auction. This isn't the sort of thing I would have bought from auction. The way I normally get my cars now is through my car buying website. So if you are looking to sell a car, it is www.carmora.co.uk, and it's working quite well actually as a business, because what we're doing is we are trying our damnedest to beat any quote that is a genuine quote you've been offered for part exchange, or through We Buy Any Car, or through other buying means. And we're doing quite well. We bought 30 cars last month, so obviously doing the job properly. So if you're selling something, drop us a message on the link below. The reason I've bought this car is, first of all, it came in part exchange, so it was presented to me. And secondly, I really wanted it. I think that there's something to be said about this, which is when you look at stuff like VAUXHALL Nova GSIs, or Corsa SRIs, or even Peugeot 106 GTIs, all of these cars that were sort of early noughties, they're starting to get a bit of a following. I echo that in the way that I feel about this as well. So when I was 20, I really wanted one. And then for the next 20 years, I never even gave one a second thought. It was just a Corso, don't really care. And then I got offered one recently, and I really wanted it again. It's kind of the nostalgia of it. And it smells, by the way, of a VAUXHALL Corsa in here. And if you know what I mean, you know what I mean. I think these might potentially get a second run. When you look online, there are 46 of these for sale on Auto Trader, and 16 of them have been modified. 3 of them are category cars, and it is difficult to find one of the earlier generation one of these, let alone find one that is low owners, low mileage, nice service history, of which all of these things are true with this car. I think they're getting rarer, and when you couple that with the nostalgia of wanting to own one, all of a sudden you get this perfect storm of the values might start to go up. This car on the open market is probably worth about 5 grand. It's not a huge amount of money. Now, just to go back over point 3, which is the type of owners with this car, unfortunately, this was the sort of car that was getting modified, beaten, abused. It was not being warmed up. It was being cold started and launched, pop and bang remaps, you name it, everything that could possibly go wrong, poor maintenance, cheap oil, etc. But that happened at the time that Facebook and YouTube were really kicking off as well. This was the perfect storm for a car that was bought cheaply, ran cheaply, modified cheaply, broken regularly, and plastered all over the internet. And therefore, unfortunately, it ended up with a reputation which arguably was probably fair. And it goes back to that initial newspaper article that I read to you as well. So this article was actually published in The Independent, if you can get your head around that. And I've still got it here because there's a couple of other bits that I want to read out. I did a bit of digging on this bloke that wrote this article that was very rude about VAUXHALL Corsas. So, I put my glasses on to do absolutely nothing but make me look studious. Michael Booth, who wrote this article in The Independent, then went on to say, the VAUXHALL badge will be a problem for many, of course. And unfortunately, those for whom these kind of things don't matter may well struggle to cover the insurance, let alone the sticker price. So I do wonder who is going to buy it. But that's not my problem. I'm more worried that I've begun to start every sentence with, no, yeah. Quite cutting. Now, I did a bit of research on this bloke. It would appear that he is infamous for his food reviews and critique, which is quite interesting. But he then went on to write another review on the Focus RS in 2008, and he was saying, now I can remember all those years ago as I watched Darren steal Tracy from under my nose with his dad's XR4i. So it would appear that Michael has actually got a problem with anyone called Darren, regardless of whether or not you look like you work at QUID. I think the writing was on the wall with this car before it even started. Let's have a final walk around, a bit of a recap. So we have it. Before we do a quick recap, if you've not subscribed, you've made it this far, please do, because it makes a huge difference to us as a channel. Only 10% of people who watch the videos are actually subscribed, and it is literally a click of a button and bell notification on, and you get a note of all the new videos that are coming up. This Corsa, I think, has taught us a bit of a lesson, really, and VXR as a brand, which is the media can totally destroy something before it even happens. This car, I think, is actually a really good car. Has it got its issues? Yes. Is it going to blow up on someone's way home? Maybe. Has it been ruined by the sort of yobbos that I was when I was younger? Absolutely. But is it a bad car? I'd argue not. I just think it got a bad start. I think the problem is sometimes we get prejudged as people and sometimes we get prejudged as cars. And you have to live a life of difficulty and judgment, and then eventually one day someone sees this little diamond in the rough. And I think, personally, these have got legs on them to do something special in the future. So there you go. What's your thoughts? Am I mad? Am I totally wrong? I usually am. But with this, I think I might be hitting the nail on the head. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.